Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, whoever you might be on this earth of ours. Welcome to Emergency Management Associates, coming to you from the Area Command, 392 miles west of Kitty Hawk Beach, North Carolina. We want to welcome everybody who's joined us here on the program tonight. We're going to dispense with the Pledge of Allegiance and the National Anthem because of time. It's already almost 8 p.m. Eastern Time on the East Coast. Sorry about that. It's been a very busy day that we've had. A lot of news that we have come across, and we want to bring it all to you tonight. We have a lot to talk about. A very lot to talk about. Now, folks, some of this might be not good for children. I want to put that out first. First thing I want to do is go over to the Chinese Sea, between Japan and Taiwan in the Chinese Sea. I want you to see what happened this past week. I forgot about this all week until now. I'm going to air it now. Military vids on YouTube.
Horrible. U.S. Navy destroys Chinese fighter jet crossing over U.S. aircraft carrier in South China Sea. In a dramatic incident that unfolded in the South China Sea, the United States Navy engaged and destroyed a Chinese fighter jet that ventured dangerously.
Want to earn reliable income from investments that exist outside
between the two military powers and heightened concerns over the volatile situation in the region. This video aims to provide a comprehensive account of the event and its potential implications. In a meeting with his Chinese counterpart in June, the U.S. Defense Secretary, Lloyd Austin, raised the need to improve crisis communications and also noted what he called dangerous behavior by Chinese military aircraft. The incident, which involved a Chinese Navy J-11 fighter jet and a U.S. Air Force B-52 bomber, the U.S. military said in a statement. The intercept, which took place on Tuesday, was deemed unprofessional due to the maneuvers by the Chinese pilot, as well as the speeds and proximity of both aircraft. Air Force spokesman Kal Lori Hodge said, on July 18, a Chinese fighter jet breached international norms by aggressively crossing into the airspace above a U.S. aircraft carrier in the South China Sea. The carrier, part of a routine naval exercise, was conducting operations in international waters when it detected the unauthorized incursion. Reacting swiftly, the U.S. Navy took defensive action to protect the carrier and its personnel. Relations between China and the U.S. have been tense, with friction between the world's two largest economies over everything, from Taiwan and China's human rights record to its military activity in the South China Sea. U.S. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's trip to Taiwan infuriated China, which saw it as a U.S. attempt to interfere in its internal affairs. China subsequently launched military drills near the island. In response to the Chinese fighter jet's incursion, the U.S. Navy swiftly deployed its state-of-the-art defense systems to neutralize the threat. Advanced radar systems on board the aircraft carrier detected the approaching aircraft and identified it as a Chinese fighter jet. The crew immediately initiated communication protocols to establish contact and warn the intruding aircraft to change course. However, as the warnings went unanswered, the U.S. Navy made the difficult decision to employ defensive measures to protect the aircraft carrier and its personnel. A missile launched from the carrier's defense systems successfully intercepted and destroyed the Chinese fighter jet before it could pose any further danger. The incident has far-reaching implications for international relations, particularly between the United States and China. The South China Sea has been a contentious area, with multiple countries asserting territorial claims. The presence of U.S. military forces in the region has long been a point of tension between the two nations. China has consistently claimed vast areas of the South China Sea as its sovereign territory, a position that has been widely disputed by neighboring countries and the international community. The U.S., along with its allies, has maintained a stance of freedom of navigation, conducting regular military exercises in the region to assert its commitment to international maritime law. With the destruction of the Chinese fighter jet, tensions between the U.S. and China have escalated significantly. Chinese authorities have condemned the U.S. Navy's actions as a violation of their territorial sovereignty, while the U.S. asserts that it was acting in self-defense. Diplomatic channels are likely to be activated to address the incident and prevent further escalation. The destruction of a Chinese fighter jet crossing over a U.S. aircraft carrier in the South China Sea marks a significant event in the ongoing tensions between the two military powers. The incident highlights the volatility of the situation in the region and underscores the potential for unintended consequences.
What I'm going to say now is we could have been at war a few weeks ago. This was unintended consequences, okay? And could be a precursor for other unintended consequences over here in the South China Sea against Taiwan or Japan, because China has said that they will take Taiwan, Japan, and Guam, and all of the Mariana Islands. Okay, so this is just the first thing. China violated our airspace over our aircraft carrier. They're saying we violated their ocean-going rights in international waters. So we'll see where this ends up. This was a couple weeks ago. I've been meaning to air it for a couple weeks now, but I wanted everybody to be aware of it. Not a lot of people get this channel, can find it or anything else. That's why we aired this clip of this. I think it's very, very important. Another issue that we have come across is this. Just a couple days ago, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, the same one that has been at odds with almost the entire country with his large, heavy-handed tactics involving politics against his citizens in Illinois. J.B. Pritzker signed a law that will allow illegal immigrants to become police officers and sheriff's deputies in Illinois. American citizens will be arrested by illegal immigrants to this country. Where are these illegal immigrants coming from that will be given police power here in the United States for the first time? That remains to be seen. Could be these police officers might be from the Middle East, in which case we would be in real trouble, because they would claim other Islamic laws, as has happened in Michigan when these Islamic people took over parts of Michigan, where the signs have been changed from English to Islamic dialect. Incredible. Once this takes effect in Illinois, people who are actively breaking federal law will be arresting American citizens. People who are actively breaking federal law will be arresting American citizens if they break the law. This madness from the Democratic Party is absolutely out of control. Is this anyone concerned? Is anyone actually concerned with this? Renee Steffi's in the chat saying, isn't this against the Constitution? Yes, it is. Yet this bozo in power in Illinois has given the opportunity for illegal immigrants to become police officers. This is unheard of. This is completely unheard of. Okay? I want you to think about this a while. Maybe we'll come back to it. If not today, another day. But I wanted to come out with this. I feel like this is absolutely mandatory that we keep track of what's going on around us. I am beyond enraged. I'm beyond enraged. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but it's against the law. Pam Miller in the chat says it's not okay with me. I don't think it's okay with anyone. Okay? I just don't. Speaking of people in the chat, Donna Howard, who's in the chat tonight, gave us a donation to our program, which I greatly appreciate, Donna. Thank you so much. I got a package in the mail from Nathan Hester. Nathan Hester is from Mississippi, and he sent me some rocks that I want to share with you. Okay, really quickly, because I've got so much else to talk about tonight. I have a fossil here. It's almost like a heart-shaped fossil. You can just barely see it here in the camera image. It's incredible. This is a piece of quartz. If you hold it up to the light, you can see all the way through it. It's actually a beautiful specimen. This other one, I'm not sure what it is. This may be petrified petrified wood, okay? Now in the form of a rock. It's got a dent in the middle of it, as you can see, a hole in the middle of it, but it's beautiful as well. It's really cool. And that's the bottom of it. It's pretty cool. I want to thank Nathan for that as well. I always tell you guys and show you when we get things in the mail. That's what we got in the mail today, and I really appreciate it. Anyway, Al Sanchez says what Pritzker has done is unacceptable to him. I think it should be unacceptable to everybody, and I wish, like all get out, that idiot in charge in Washington would come down upon Pritzker with all kinds of crap, because what Pritzker did is against the Constitution of the United States, and big man, the boss, JB, should know that. But that's another story. Okay? Vicky K says those rocks are cool. Yes, I believe they are too. Thank you so much. I appreciate Nathan going to that trouble to send us those rock specimens to me. I really appreciate it. Now, something else has happened during the past 24 hours. There was a 3.9 earthquake that hit over near Snohomish, Washington. This hit hard. Okay? It was felt all the way west of Friday Harbor, Washington. You can see the aftershocks. There's more aftershocks now than we pictured here. Now, I've got something else here that I want to show you. Folks, we believe that earthquake may have been as large as a 4.5. This is what it first came out as, and they reduced it to 3.8. Over a half magnitude downgrade. But this was felt all the way north to Friday Harbor. All over the place, guys. Okay? This is almost unheard of. What USGS did in downgrading this thing is almost illegal. in my book. They've been doing this for a very, very long time. A very long time. And frankly, I'm tired of it. I'm very tired of it. There were over 1,343 felt reports, and there's probably even more felt reports now. I want to show you something. Okay? Number one, let me take this earthquake down here and let me show you what I found. Okay? I've got 6 felt reports listed here that I wanted to show you. One person says everything in the house shook for 8 seconds. Okay? 17 kilometers from the epicenter. That's a pretty long way. Next, 3 quick shakes woke me up out of bed, no damage. Duval. Slight jolt, then shaking for a couple seconds. From Redmond. Monroe. Woke me up upstairs bedroom, the bed was vibrating. Let me show you another one. This one also from Monroe. House gave a big jolt once. This other one from Arlington. Felt and heard it in bed. It happened at 3:18 a.m. this morning, Pacific time. It's a big deal. I believe it was a 4.5, not a 3.8 or even a 3.6 that they downgraded it to. Yes, folks, they downgraded it to 3.6. Almost a full magnitude downgrade. Their first downgrade was bad enough. This came in 0.1% lower than a full downgrade. Okay? It's unheard of that the U.S. Geological Survey, the preeminent earthquake or seismic agency, downgrades earthquakes of full magnitude, literally. Okay? Now, why am I upset by it? We've been talking a lot about the Cascadia earthquake, and I want to talk to you now about what is actually going on. Okay? The Cascadia earthquake. Let's show this now. The Seattle infrastructure is failing, and the new projects that they're trying to take on intensifies the damage possible with the Cascadia event. Imagine the I-5 corridor in downtown Seattle, already a funnel effect on traffic. They already have a funnel effect on traffic with the number of lanes reduced. Okay? With the major collapse of these structures, the hills themselves are built on loose material. The hills themselves are built on loose material when the city was rebuilt after the fire. Now, thousands of people will be cut off. And I can imagine downtown simply sliding into the Puget Sound. This person says, normally I would praise the structures they propose as improvements to use socially and commerce-wise, as the hills around Seattle are monstrous for foot traffic. However, those funds should be for repairs and current infrastructure preparation for safety. This is what's being talked about with the proposals for the buildings and such in the Seattle area, the new buildings. Okay? They should be spending the money on infrastructure preparation for earthquake safety instead of spending billions and millions of dollars. Maybe I said billions, and yes, I probably did, but it can be that with overruns. Okay? I am very concerned about this, because what I'm going to talk about and show you tonight is just a small bit of their chicanery in Seattle. It's not just the city fathers that have gone astray here with new building when they should be repairing and making sure their superstructures on their bridges are sound and prepared to withstand a 9.0 to a 10.0 earthquake, such as what is going to happen with the Cascadia megathrust earthquake. I kid you not, guys, that's what we're going to have. As I showed you, this quake first came out as a 4.5. That is a moderate quake, regardless of what the USGS now says is a light quake. They've taken moderate to be light. A 4.5 earthquake in Los Angeles in 2014 destroyed Los Angeles. Sewer lines ruptured, water mains ruptured, glass all over the city broke in a million pieces and had to be repaired. And I was asked to fly to Los Angeles to help them recover the city. It's unreal, guys, and these people believe that it's okay. A 4.5 hit over there in Snohomish County. Folks, I have questions about this. I have deep, long-seated questions about what's going on. Now, with that earthquake, folks, was felt all the way up to Friday Harbor up here in the Puget Sound area. Okay? What we're looking at here is the North American plate in Washington, not just Oregon, but not just Oregon, Washington, and California, but this is just Washington we're looking at. Okay? Why am I doing this? Because, folks, we just had a 4.5 there near Seattle. What do you think could happen now? This is the third 4.5 or greater earthquake that we've had in this area. The other one was over at Lake Almanor with 5.1 and 5.5. This is a 4.5 in the Cascade Mountain region. In the Cascade Mountain region on land. How many more are we going to have before we have a Cascadia megathrust earthquake of a 9.0 to 10.0 shaking radius to destroy the whole area? Because that's exactly what's going to happen. Okay? The red dotted line that runs almost straight north here, that is the Cascadia subduction zone itself. You see the Juan de Fuca plate out to the west of that. That is a zigzag plate that runs all the way up to Queen Charlotte Island, British Columbia. Between the Juan de Fuca plate and the Cascadia subduction zone, the Cascadia earthquake is going to be huge. Both fault zones can carry that 10.0 earthquake shaking all the way south to Northern California. What are we going to do then? What are we going to do then? 4.5 earthquake. Here. here. Now folks, that earthquake happened over here on the Darrington Devil Mountain Fault. This fault zone itself could happen to have a 7.1 earthquake on just this fault itself. But it's not the only fault that's here. You notice a fault over on the lower left-hand side of this slide here. Folks, that fault is just a slight bit different. Just a slight bit different. That fault goes all the way over to Whidbey Island. That fault is capable of a 7.5. That fault in and of itself is capable of a 7.5. This earthquake was felt over in that fault zone as well. So here we have two faults inland from the Cascadia subduction zone. One capable of 7.1 and another capable of a 7.5. Both could be set off by the Cascadia subduction zone. Literally. Very literally, they could be set off by the Cascadia subduction zone. And I'm not pulling your strings here. I think this is very telling of what happened here in the Pacific Northwest today. Because what is happening, guys, is I believe these were shallow quakes. I know for a fact that they were shallow quakes. What happens when we have swarms of earthquakes? What happens when we have swarms of earthquakes, folks? Swarms of earthquakes mean larger, shallow quake, don't they? These were shallow. We may soon see a larger shallow quake. Every time we have swarms, it usually means there's going to be a larger quake. Folks, I don't know about you. I'm not scared. But I want everybody to be prepared. We have been talking about the Cascadia megathrust earthquake for a very, very long time. Going on 3 years now. 3 years. What is it going to take to get everybody's attention, guys? Joaquin Romer says, ground shakes. Duh, Ron. Yes, it does. But is anybody being prepared? Is anybody even listening to me? This was a 4.5 quake. It was felt all over the place. Over 1,300 felt reports. And that is not the only ones that felt it. Only over 1,300 people registered the report. Noble Frog just gave us a $10 super chat. Thank you. Says, I enjoy your show, Ron. How do they know how deep the quake is? Because the sensors are placed at different places along the fault zones. They are very able to detect how deep these quakes are because of the sensors that are placed in the ground. And yet, they will tell us, well, we're not sure. If we don't know, we will say it's a 6.2 mile deep quake, or it's a 10 kilometer deep quake, same thing. They know. They just don't want to tell anybody. They don't want to tell anybody. Don Patokas here in the chat, one of my dear friends and a mod on this channel. There's no political solution to a spiritual issue. You're right. There isn't. Yes, this is a spiritual issue. And we need to do something about it, like pray. If everybody prayed, maybe we would come to a physical solution as well. Well, people changing their minds and doing something to save people's lives. Okay? I'm very concerned. I think we all should be concerned. Folks, it's no joke. This is the other fault, the Whidbey Island fault. Reaching out over the Puget Sound over here to Whidbey Island, Washington. So we have the Darrington Devil's Mountain fault, and the Whidbey fault. Do you see where it's going? Out in the Puget Sound area? Isn't this where we had a 6.9 earthquake a few years ago? Now, earthquakes in much of this region are a consequence of stresses associated with the motion of the Juan de Fuca oceanic plate and the North American continental plate. The motion is a rate of several centimeters per year. Now, this has been moving since the Cascadia megathrust earthquake in 1700. Several centimeters a year for over 200 and some years now. This relative motion is largely made possible because the Juan de Fuca plate descends into the Earth's mantle below the North American continent, running along what is called the Cascadia subduction zone. The Cascadia subduction zone. Let me stop here and give you a for instance. Okay? My right hand here is the North American plate. Seattle, Vancouver, British Columbia, Portland, California, that whole area. Canada, Washington, Oregon, and California. That is the North American plate. The Juan de Fuca plate and the North American plate are doing a nosedive underneath the North American plate. It's called subduction. The Juan de Fuca fault and the North American plate are doing a nosedive under the Cascadia subduction zone, the fault line that runs along the coast. In doing so, it's causing uplift on land. It's raising the mountains up. It's also causing volcanoes. You cannot have a volcano anywhere without subduction. Everywhere around the entire ring of fire. The Pacific Ring of Fire, running from way down in the South Pacific up the east coast of the Pacific Ocean to South America, Chile, Peru, Ecuador, Colombia, the Cocos Plate. On the west side of the Pacific Ocean, we have the Philippines. We have Taiwan. We have Japan. We have Kamchatka Peninsula. And then we have the Aleutian Island chain and Alaska completing the entire circle. On the lower part, south part of the South Pacific, we have Samoa, Tonga. We have the islands of the Pacific, New Caledonia, New Zealand, Vanuatu, the Solomon Islands, Papua New Guinea, and Indonesia. That whole area comprises the Pacific Ring of Fire. The whole place around the ocean constitutes the Pacific Ring of Fire. Without subduction, we don't have volcanoes. We've been talking a lot about volcanoes recently. Semeru, Mount Ibu, Dukono, Krakatau, all those volcanoes down in Indonesia are erupting. A couple of volcanoes over in the Philippines are erupting. Several volcanoes in Japan are erupting. Kamchatka Peninsula has 2 volcanoes that are erupting. We have talked to you about 3 volcanoes that are erupting now up in the Alaska and Aleutian Island area. 2 others over in southeastern Alaska, Wardell and Edgecombe volcanoes, are rumbling, and they look like that. Well, it's not just those 2, but over in the north part of the southern Alaska area, we also have Old Ililama volcano at the top of the peninsula, and Mount Redoubt up just southwest of Anchorage. Those 2 volcanoes and the 2 over on the southeastern part of Alaska, Wardell and Edgecombe volcano, also look like they're going to erupt. Mount Redoubt erupted this time last year. It could erupt very easily now. We have several volcanoes in the mainland United States that look like they could erupt at any time. Almost every week, and we're going to talk about them this week as well. Every one of those volcanoes is ready to erupt, or is erupting. Anywhere where we have the Ring of Fire, we have subduction. Subduction causing those volcanoes to go. Okay? And with the Juan de Fuca Fault and the North American Plate nosediving into the mantle, we have issues. That also causes earthquakes. And then we top that off with solar flares. Solar flares. An X-Class 2 flare and a dozen others lifted off from the sun this past weekend. A very strong X-Class 2 flare and several others M and G and C class have erupted from the sun. Fortunately, the X-Class 2 and several others were on the far western limb of the sun, and they're now on the back side of the sun as we rotate around the sun. But they'll be coming back. We also have several sunspots that have been on the back of the sun that also have erupted, and they're also coming back towards us. With all those sunspots this past week, and I'm going to say we've had at least 7 or 8, actually more than that, probably a dozen eruptions from the sun, solar flares, CMEs, causing gamma radiation. Literally, gamma radiation reaching out to the Earth within just hours. Then we have the plasma proton radiation coming out from the sun. That hits Earth within 48 to 72 hours. And that's why we still have plasma radiation hitting the Earth now and tomorrow. And it's going to continue all week long. Radio communications damaged, almost impossible to talk. Ham radio, police, fire, and paramedic radios. Air-to-ground aircraft radio traffic hampered. Air-to-ground space station traffic hampered. Air-to-ground satellite communications hampered. Oh yeah, there's a lot that goes into this. And because of that plasma radiation, it's heating up the core of the Earth. But it's also heating up our plates, making it very easy for these earthquakes to happen. very easy for these earthquakes to happen. Because as I said, that radiation and the radiation we get from electromagnetic radiation coming from planetary alignments, and yes, we've had a few of those as well, and that's going to continue to happen all this month. All that radiation heating up the plates of the earth, causing earthquakes. Those areas where those earthquakes happen, those fault zones, with all that dirt and grime and biological material that's down there between the plates and the faults holding them in place, guess what? All that junk that heats up becomes like grease, a greasy oil-like substance, causes those plates and faults to slip. And like I said, the subduction zone areas are really going to subduct in a great manner. The past week or so we've had a bunch of 5s, 5.0s, 5.1s, 5.4s, 5.5s, 5.6s, and 5.7s. We haven't had too many 6s or 7s recently. But with everything happening, guys, it's just a matter of time, and we're going to have those 6 very strong earthquakes. We're going to have 7 major earthquakes again. They're going to cause people's lives to be taken away. They're going to cause major damage and injury to people. Are you prepared? Are any of you prepared around the globe? Right now I'm talking about the Cascadia region. That's Canada, southwestern Canada, Washington, Oregon, and California. But we have earthquakes all around the globe and around the Pacific Ring of Fire. Like I said, the relative motion is largely made possible by the Juan de Fuca and the North American plate as it descends into the mantle of the earth. This Cascadia subduction zone is real. This Cascadia subduction zone is very real. I've talked about this for a very, very long time. I've talked about it for a long, long time. I'm very concerned for everybody's safety. That's why I have spent so much time talking about this. People's lives are at stake. Here I'm showing you in this slide here the North American craton. Folks, it's serious. It's very serious. This whole area of the west coast of North America is going to suffer major effects from these earthquakes. Major effects from these earthquakes. And if we don't pay attention, we're the ones that are going to lose. The western side of the North American continent, it's called the Cascadia subduction zone, which extends from northwestern California all the way up through Washington, Oregon, Vancouver Island, and up to Queen Charlotte Island, Canada. The relative plate motion that is not accommodated by the subduction of the Juan de Fuca plate is accommodated by the deformation of the overriding American plate. The overriding American plate. Because with that subduction, it's causing the North American plate to rise like this. It's called mountain building. Mountain building. Earthquakes are associated with both the subduction process and the deformation of the overriding North American plate. That 4.5, or as the USGS wants to call it, a 3.6 now, was felt upwards of northwestern Oak Harbor, Washington, possibly associated with the Darrington Devil's Mountain Fault Zone that we showed you, which is located in southern Skagit County and northern Snohomish County. It forms the northern boundary of the Everett Basin. The Everett Basin, guys. Now, again, why do you think I'm showing it to you? Because I am concerned, guys, that we're not paying attention to business here. I am concerned that we're not paying attention. Look here. In showing you this slide, you can see exactly where I'm talking about and why I could be concerned. There's over 700,000 people that live in this area alone. Over 700,000 people live in this general area alone. The fault zone that we're talking about was originally named the Devil's Mountain Fault because it presents itself on Devil's Mountain, near Mount Vernon, Washington, where it separates what they call Mesozoic rocks from tertiary deposits. Later, another segment called the Darrington Fault Zone was identified where northeast trending faults closely associated with and contrasting with the Mesozoic era, which is the second to last era of Earth's geological history. That's why they call it that, lasting from about 252 to 66 million years ago. Now that's what they call it for this history. Most of us that are Christian believe that what they're calling 66 million years ago is the matter that's always existed. That could be dated back to 66 million years ago. The atoms, the material that the Earth was created with, the material, could be 66 million years old when the Lord put it all together. But the Mesozoic age is the age of the dinosaurs, just to give you an idea. That area, rocks and materials with a mixture of what they call Eocene rocks from 54.8 to 33.7 million years ago, near the town of Darrington, Washington. Where do we know Darrington from? Darrington is where we found basalt. Why do you think we found basalt there? Because, folks, basalt comes from magma deep within the earth. Folks, there's a volcano there. Right now, the area appears to be fairly flat. That's only because glaciers came down from that area and leveled the mountains in the area, leveled the stratovolcanoes. down to mere nothing from what they were. Basalt rock is all over that area. Okay? In 1994, the two zones were combined into the Darrington Devil's Mountain Fault Zone. The Whidbey Island fault that I showed you there, let me bring that up again. This Whidbey Island fault and that other Darrington fault, Devil's Mountain fault, runs almost straight west there. It's almost a straight line west. Okay? Folks, that Whidbey Island fault stretches from the vicinity of Victoria, British Columbia, across the Puget Sound as far as the Cascade Mountain Range. This scenario was modeled on the part of the SWIF, okay, the Whidbey Island Fault Zone from Woodinville to just west of Whidbey Island has been assessed by the USGS as capable of generating the largest coastal earthquake in Puget Sound, a 7.5 earthquake in Puget Sound. Earthquakes in the Pacific Northwest, the states of Washington, Oregon, southwest British Columbia, Canada, all the way down to California. From strike-slip faults. Strike-slip faults. They could be up and down faults like this. They could be side-by-side strike-slip faults like this. Okay? In a variety of geographic and geologic settings. It could be something like this, with the fault going up and down like this, or just side by side like this. Strike-slip faults. Earthquakes in much of this region are a consequence of stresses associated with motion of the Juan de Fuca plate, the Juan de Fuca oceanic Farallon plate, resulting in a Cascadia megathrust earthquake to the northeast, with respect to the North American continental plate, at a rate of several centimeters per year, over 230 years now. Over 230 years, several centimeters a year. Now, folks, what I want to tell you is the Cascadia megathrust fault has been locked up since it last released. Since it last released, it's been locked up. And we're seeing these low-level earthquakes hit because it's trying to release some energy, but actually very little energy is being released. This 4.5 earthquake that happened early this morning is only a preparation for a larger, more damaging quake. Okay? Folks, we need to get this right. We don't have too much more time to make it right. Betty Zooms here in the chat says, Ron, I've been in a lot of rooms, and you're right. No one talks about the earthquake or the volume or the storms. And they're so afraid. Then I watch a live, and we get this. She goes, I don't know. Folks, you also, because of people are being afraid, and there's no other person talking about this, you need to share this with everybody. Everybody needs to see this. The American continent, not just the American continent, the Canadian U.S. continent, the North American plate that we're on, is moving. It's moving. And it's moving along that Cascadia subduction zone that's running alongside the North American plate, right? Then we have that other fault. We have the Cascadia subduction zone Pacific Plate, the Farallon Plate, and the Juan de Fuca Plate, taking a deep dive under the North American Plate at the Cascadia subduction zone. The whole area from Queen Charlotte Island, Vancouver Island, Washington, Oregon, and California is subducting. That whole area is subducting, and if I might also include Alaska, because the North American Fault is also going under Alaska. Alaska is part of the North American Fault, the North American Plate. Relative plate motion that is not accommodated by subduction of the Juan de Fuca Plate is accommodated by deformation of the overriding American Plate. In other words, the mountain building. The mountain building. Earthquakes are associated with both the subduction process and the deformation of the overriding North American Plate. The deformation is when the present form of the Earth is deformed or changed. The present form of the Earth as we see it is changed because of earthquake or seismic doing, seismic activity. Given that rate of convergence, guys, between the Juan de Fuca, the North American Plate at the Cascadia subduction zone at least 4 centimeters a year, that's a lot of movement. And that thrust fault at the Cascadia subduction zone that has been locked since the last great earthquake in 1700. The slip distance could be expected if that megathrust earthquake occurred today and released all accumulated deformation. That would be a huge earthquake. That plate's been locked up for over 230 years. The locked portion of the thrust fault between the subducting Juan de Fuca Plate, the overriding North American Plate, is approximately 1,000 kilometers long and 100 kilometers wide. The locked portion of the Juan de Fuca Plate, the North American Plate, is approximately 1,000 kilometers long, 100 kilometers wide. That's huge. And the shear change of the rock. The shear change of the rock. Huge. 1,000 kilometers deep and 100 kilometers wide. The elasticity of a rock mass. It's huge. And the corresponding strain during the loading of the rock mass, the stress, includes only the elastic behavior. The elastic behavior. It slips and falls. Slips and falls. Now, let's look at a very conservative estimate. A 7.1 earthquake scenario based on a 50-kilometer, 31-mile long rupture of the Darrington Devil's Mountain Fault. 31 miles long, 50 kilometers. Huge rupture, huh? A 7.1 rupture. On the Whidbey Island Fault, they're expecting it to be a 7.5. Huge destruction. We've seen that happen in South America, in Peru this year. Early this year, I believe it was in January. Huge destruction. If it had been in a populated area, it would have destroyed that area. Yet this is a very populated area. Over 350,000 people live in this area where that 4.5 hit today. Huge. Huge. This deformation likely occurs during 2 earthquakes. The first between 1100 to 2200 years ago. The second 7.1 earthquake likely occurred between 100 to 500 years ago, meaning that the Darrington Devil's Mountain Fault is anywhere from 1 to 500 years past due. The fault zone forms the northern boundary of the Everett Basin. The Everett Basin, guys. Has anybody thought about how big that Everett Basin really is? Has anybody thought how big that basin is? How many people live in that basin? It's huge, guys. It is very big. And folks, we don't have much longer. It's going to hit. You see Everett on this map. You see Granite Falls, where this earthquake allegedly hit today. 7.1 earthquake there. Or if we come just south of Lake Stevens here and go straight east, you have the Whidbey Island Fault, capable of a 7.5 earthquake. Okay? Do you understand what we're talking about? This seismic energy extending from the Cascade Mountains to Vancouver Island? Yeah. Everett is the county seat and largest city of Snohomish County. It's 25 miles north of Seattle, and it's one of the main cities in the metropolitan area and the Puget Sound region. Everett is the 7th largest city in the state by population with 110,629 residents as of 2020, just 3 years ago. The Olympic Mountains to the west across the Puget Sound have also been rocking because the Olympic Mountain is a volcano. Not a lot of people understand that. This fault zone, like I said before, was originally named the Devil's Mountain Fault for exposures on Devil Mountain near Mount Vernon. We've had earthquakes this year around Mount Vernon as well. Mount Vernon is a big place. The Mesozoic rocks from the tertiary deposits, later another segment called the Darrington Fault, like I said, that identifies with the Devil's Mountain Fault. It's huge. It's huge. Now let's talk deep versus shallow quakes. A deep quake versus a shallow quake. The 7.1 scenario that we talked about on the Darrington Devil's Mountain Fault is shallow or crustal earthquake. Shallow earthquakes tend to be much more damaging than deep quakes of comparable magnitude, such as a deep 6.8 Nisqually quake of 2001. The 6.8 Nisqually quake in 2001 is primarily in a deeper earthquake category because the seismic waves have been lost because more energy that was dissipated over a longer period of time as the seismic energy reached up to the surface. Everybody understand that? The 6-point quake, the Nisqually 6.8 quake, was deep, and the seismic waves reached up. Okay, let me move this out of here. I want to show you this. The deep Nisqually quake reached up to the surface over a long distance. And because it was a powerful deep quake, the seismic waves took a longer time to reach up to the surface. And because of that, at the surface, the seismic waves did damage, but not as much as it could have been if it was a shallow quake. If that had been a shallow quake, there would have been a lot more damage. A ton more damage. A ton more damage. Primarily because in deeper quakes, the seismic waves have lost much more energy by the time they reach the surface. Aftershocks. Unlike deep earthquakes, which usually produce a few or no aftershocks, because that energy takes a long time to reach the surface, a 7.1 major quake, shallow in nature, like the one in this scenario, would likely be followed by many, many aftershocks. A major 7.1 earthquake followed by many aftershocks, a few of which could be large enough to cause major damage. Other earthquake effects. When we've talked about the Cascadia megathrust earthquake in the past, we've talked about within 15 or 20 minutes after the Cascadia megathrust earthquake hits, after the shaking stops from the original quake, there's going to be a tsunami. Because the water, after that earthquake hits, the water is going to rush from the shore out back into the ocean and try to fill the void in the floor of the ocean where the strike slip happened. And when it reaches that area, it's going to bounce back just like a rubber band. It's going to bounce back in a huge tsunami, anywhere from 50 to 150 foot tsunami. A 50 to 150 foot tsunami. Well, in this case, if we had a 7.1 on the Darrington Devil's Mountain earthquake zone, we wouldn't get that big of a tsunami, but it still could be a big tsunami. It could generate a local tsunami. Delta failures and landslides caused by the shaking may also create or amplify the tsunami. Geological and historical evidence shows that landslides and failure of the sediments in river deltas have generated tsunamis within the Puget Sound in the past, and they will likely do it again. So if this fault zone that originated with this earthquake today, okay, this was a shallow 4.5 earthquake, or 3.6 as they want to call it now. Folks, let me bring this back to you. I want to show you. I'm sorry, where'd it go? Here it is. Where this earthquake hit. This was a shallow quake. A shallow quake that resulted in aftershocks today. A 4.1 earthquake. And these are not all the aftershocks today either. This is just a good majority of them. Folks, what we're seeing here are shallow quakes. A swarm of shallow quakes, with the origination shallow quake of being a 4.5. It could be a lot more serious than that. When we have swarms, whether it be small swarms or large swarms, it usually means a more dangerous, larger quake is coming. Is coming, guys. This is serious. I cannot emphasize how serious enough that it is. I truly believe that the Cascadia earthquake is coming. It's literally when. I wish I could tell you when. I do. I wish I could tell you when. Because I want to make sure that we have the people able to withstand it. I want to get everybody here on a footing where they're sharing this information with everybody they possibly can. We need to save lives, and the only way we can save it is this information getting out to the public. I'm asking you to share it with everybody that you know, that you associate with, your family, your friends, your neighbors, your social media contacts, the people you work with as well. Everybody. Family, extended family, everybody. If you have relatives or family here in Washington, especially now, they need to get prepared immediately. People in southwestern Canada, everywhere around the Gulf of Alaska, Washington, Oregon, and California need to get prepared now. The Cascadia quake is coming. It's coming. And I kid you not, guys, this is going to be serious. Nathan Hester says, and when that happens, could it put more pressure on the mountain and volcanoes out there? Yes. The history books tell us that the last time this earthquake hit, either Glacier Peak or Mount Rainier was erupting. Either Glacier Peak or Mount Rainier was erupting. Okay? Which means that we may not have much time left. We could have an eruption of Mount Rainier, Glacier Peak, or Mount St. Helens, or even Mount Baker up north at any time. There are plenty of earthquakes and tremors happening all around the Cascade Mountain range from north to south down into northern California. I've been showing you that for months and weeks and years. It's happening now, as we speak. Now, as for things that happened during the past 24 hours. Last night I came on the air for just 5 minutes, putting out a warning for the East Coast of the United States, telling you that we had come into a huge squall, and it lasted for hours. Let me show you what happened. This is up north in Maryland. You can find a link to this in our program description below this video today.
Thousands of people along the mid-Atlantic are assessing the damage, cleaning up, and waiting for their power to come back on after a nasty round of storms yesterday. Meg Oliver has the latest from Maryland.
Down utility poles are lining a stretch of Route 140 in Westminster, Maryland, after a storm ripped through the area. The poles came down like dominoes Monday, trapping 33 adults and 14 children in vehicles surrounded by live power lines.
Realizing those motors were trapped and would be there for some time, we made arrangements to provide water, throwing it into the vehicles to sustain them, while BG&E was en route to shut down, de-energize all the lines that were around the area.
Once the power was shut off, authorities say everyone was evacuated safely.
There were people who were stuck and stranded in cars who were able to sleep in their own beds last night. And that's because of the work of everybody who moved and our first responders.
Outside Baltimore, a huge tree sliced through the home of a couple in their 70s. Their son is grateful both made it out with just minor injuries.
Probably would have been killed. Like I said, somebody was looking out for them.
In Tennessee, the severe conditions snapped trees, ripped into this high school, and forced hundreds of people to evacuate this apartment complex.
And my power flickered, and at that point, I just grabbed him and we got in the bathtub.
Across the country, more than 8,400 flights were delayed and more than 1,700 canceled as thunderstorms forced ground stops at major airports along the East Coast. While cleanup is just beginning, travel disruptions are getting back to normal and power outages have reduced significantly along the East Coast.
The storms are blamed for at least 2 deaths. One person was hit by lightning in Alabama and the other hit by a falling tree in South Carolina.
Okay, that was that story from Maryland News. Okay, let's come down south here to North Carolina.
And right now at 10 o'clock, the Triad is starting to dry out after a line of severe storms rolled through earlier tonight. At this hour, we're still getting images of damages into our newsroom. First up, viewer Rhonda Williams sent us this picture from the Liberty area there in Randolph County. You can see those 2 pickup trucks crushed by a huge tree. We also got this picture in from the Randleman area. You can see a tree blocking the roadway there, a lot of debris scattered. Some serious damage in parts of the Triad, but it was even worse in other parts of the Carolinas. We'll get to that in just a moment. But first, Chief Meteorologist Laney Pope is in the First Warning Weather Center. And Laney, you were telling us earlier, the Triad got pretty lucky when it comes to these storms tonight.
We absolutely did. These storms came through, did a lot of damage across the Virginias, the Carolinas, all the way down to the deep south. We had some damage, but not widespread like others are dealing with. Now you see that line of storms as it raced through the area. See the green on the screen? That is all of the lightning associated with a very intense storm that may have dropped a couple of tornadoes in the Mecklenburg County area down around Charlotte. No confirmation on that. For us, we had some trees down across the area, and you can see that it's pretty spotty where we're concerned. You look farther to the south and west, a little more numerous, but we did have reports of a number of trees down. We'll start in Davie County, a number of trees down across the county. That report came in from Moxville. Also, multiple trees down in Davidson County in the Lexington and Southmont area. We also had reports of trees and power lines down countywide in Guilford County. That one coming in from McLeansville. We look at the radar now. Things are nice and quiet. Most of the storms have rolled well to the east. Tomorrow morning is a sunny start with temps in the 60s. You see the severe storm risk. We were in that enhanced zone earlier, dropped from that. Still pretty intense along the coastline where they do still have severe thunderstorm warnings as well as a watch box that is up. You can see all of the storm damage reports that were across the Carolinas, a lot of them to our north and our south. A very active severe weather day along the East Coast.
Active indeed, Laney, thank you. In Winston-Salem, today's storms brought a tree down at the intersection of Bureau Road and Peters Creek Parkway, knocking out power lines and traffic lights in this area. At last check tonight, that road is still shut down at this hour. And we're getting a better idea of just how lucky we got with these storms. Kenny Beck is in studio tonight with a closer look at some of the damage not too far from the Triad. Kenny.
Well, Devontae, Charlotte got absolutely pummeled tonight. If you recall, that's where the first tornado warnings started being issued this afternoon. WCNC's chief meteorologist said today set a new record for most National Weather Service storm reports in a single day for their area, Greenville-Spartanburg. Trees are down everywhere. It's widespread. There were funnel cloud reports, likely a busy Tuesday ahead down there for the National Weather Service. Some trees fell onto homes like you see here, and there are tens of thousands of power outages across Mecklenburg, Iredell, Rowan, and Catawba counties. Meanwhile, in northwestern South Carolina, Anderson County, not far from the Georgia border, a teenager has died as a result of these storms. The Anderson Fire Department says a tree came down onto 2 cars and a detached garage in the backyard of a home. A 15-year-old boy was killed at the scene around 5 o'clock this evening. And about a half hour east of Knoxville, Tennessee, severe storms ripped roofs off of buildings and blew out windows at an apartment complex. No injuries from this, but damage to these folks' homes and their belongings is extensive. There are trees and power lines down everywhere, and the word is it could be several days before everyone gets their lights back on. All of this damage, Devontae, less than a tank of gas away from us here in the Piedmont Triad.
Okay, unreal, guys. Unreal. And it's not over. Oh, I showed you that. Okay, I'm sorry. I showed you that. Guys, where I live here, We didn't get the tornado. We were lucky where I live here. We didn't get any power outage. But guys, the wind was blowing the rain in a horizontal fashion. The roadways and our parking areas were flowing like a river. I'm not kidding. It reduced the visibility to maybe 25 feet in front of you. No joke. You couldn't see out farther than 25 feet. If you had been driving, you probably would have had to pull over because you couldn't see in front of you. Not a joke. That was here in Morganton, North Carolina. There were over, I think it was 25,000 people without power. 25,000 people without power. And that just here. All over North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, and even down into Georgia. Over 250,000 people. 256,000 people without power last night. Some of that power had been restored by morning this morning. But still, even this morning, several thousand people were still without power. They probably have power by now. What have we been talking about all this time? Getting prepared for emergencies. Getting prepared for emergencies. We've said it time and time again. Getting prepared for emergencies. This is just one case. When I came on the air last night, I told people within this area and anywhere else that we're having tornadoes and bad storms last night, and there were plenty of us, to get into the center lower part of your home if you did not have a basement. To get into the center lower part of your home away from glass windows in case of a tornado or winds that would blow out your glass, and that happened yesterday. Trees falling down because of winds, and the ground loosening up the dirt and such with water. All it takes was a strong wind with that ground loosened up, and you have a major tree falling on top of your cars or your homes, knocking down power lines. That's why I went on the air last night. At the time, we had thunder and lightning outside my window, and I did not want to take a chance on losing all the equipment that we have here to monitor storms and other events that could hurt us. So after I got off the air, I shut down everything, and I would do it again. I'm asking all of you to be prepared. To be prepared for whatever emergency might happen to you. It's that time. We may not have another time to talk like this. I hope we do, but guys, it's here. Sometimes it can be scary, but those of us that have time to prepare and that have prepared, we don't have to worry too much. All we have to do is keep our wits about us and do preparatory things to protect our lives, to get us through the storm or the emergency and out to the other side of it. It could be 24 hours, it could be several hours, or it could be many days or weeks, as some people in Kentucky and Tennessee, and even here in North Carolina, are having to do now, before their houses can be repaired sufficient so they can live in their homes again. You need to be prepared. You need to be prepared. Whether you have to leave your home and go camping for a few days, have your camping equipment ready. Have your evacuation routes set. Not just one, but several evacuation routes and the place that you can evacuate to. Not just one place, but several places, in case one is full up. That's what we've been talking about since day one. Since day one, guys. Now my friend Laura Marie that's here in the chat went up to Mount Hood yesterday. Laura, if you're still here, I would love to hear from you to see what you saw, to know what you saw when you visited Mount Hood. I would love to know. Everybody here would love to know. Betty Zoom is here saying large to very large hail, severe gusts, a tornado or two are possible, and a tornado or two. Please do not follow professional storm chasers, especially one in the area where you're at. Don't follow them. That could put you in harm's way. Don't follow a storm chaser. Please don't follow emergency vehicles. Okay? Please don't do that. God helps those who are willing to help themselves. Okay? God helps those willing to do the work and helps those people that are prepared. But you need to be prepared. Don't be like 5 virgins out of 10 that weren't prepared. They didn't have oil in their lamps sufficient to go into the wedding. 5 were ready, 5 weren't. Okay? We can be ready. We can be ready. That's all I'm saying. Last night was a test, I fear. Rebecca Griffiths says, I heard there were earthquakes in California today. Yes, it is true. There was nothing major. There was a 3.8 up near San Francisco. There were a lot of 2s and 3s all over California, north to south. There were bunches of them, literally all over. Southern California is moving. Betty Zoom says Colorado and Yuma. Yes, absolutely. Okay? None of us are spreading rumors. We're not spreading fear. These things are actually happening. New Mexico is getting hit with small earthquakes. New Mexico's been hit with severe storms as well in the past. Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, Illinois, Texas. You need to be prepared. I have many dear friends all over this United States and across the seas. England got hit in Wales yesterday with an earthquake. Scandinavia keeps getting hit with earthquakes. Even a 3.0 in northern Sweden Saturday. That's the biggest earthquake I've seen in Sweden in all my life. It was a small 3.0, but still, it was the largest earthquake they've seen in Sweden. They didn't used to get hit with earthquakes. Things are happening. Every one of us needs to be prepared. Okay? Julie Healing Leaf is here saying, I dreamt of Snow Mountain with big rivers straight down from a high, sharp mountain last night. You may not be far off, Julie. I've heard this winter is going to be worse than we've ever had. Think about that. What are we doing to become prepared for that? What are we doing? Laura Marie's here in the chat saying Mount Hood was clear on top with clouds around the middle of the mountain. Those clouds, guys, those clouds are clouds. The high pressure from the top of the mountain is pushing the steam down. The clouds around the middle of the mountain are steam clouds because the high pressure of the atmosphere is pushing those steam clouds down to the middle of the mountain. Okay? There's still a lot of snow collected on the glacier. There are big patches of snow and patches free of snow. That's cool. I appreciate that. And it's exposed rock on Mount Hood. That's wonderful. I love it. Thanks, Laura. I appreciate you. God bless you, dear. Laura and I have been friends for a very, very long time. Her husband and her family are very important to me, as you guys are as well. Do you guys have any questions about anything we've talked about? I wanted to get as much information out to you as I possibly could tonight. Don Patoka just said something I think is a little bit funny but so true. If you need an excuse, see your preacher. He's heard them all. Yeah, you can do that. But you'll only be bamboozling yourself. Don't give one of God's servants an excuse. Give them the truth. Laura Marie says, you're welcome. I thought of you, Ron, and all my EMA friends when I was on Mount Hood. We drove until the road ended. That's awesome, Laura. I'm so happy for you. That's cool. Send me pics. Send me pictures, Laura. That would be great. Sorry, guys. Let me take a drink of water here. Just get prepared, everybody. That's all I'm asking. Tomorrow night, we're going to be talking about New Madrid. Thursday, we're going to talk about Cascadia some more and Southern California. I'm not going to leave Southern California alone. Southern California, you're getting ready to get hit with a major earthquake. I'm not going to put out a warning, but that seismic energy is increasing coming from the south. We keep getting earthquakes down in the Gulf of California. Southern Mexico is getting hit royally with small 3.0, 3.9, and 4.0 and larger earthquakes in southern Mexico. If you live in southern Mexico, you're going to see a 5.0 to 5.5 earthquake hit very soon. Southern California, I still believe you may get hit with a 4.5 or larger. But that larger major quake is coming. You folks down in Japan, you've seen 4.5s, you've seen 5.3s recently. That's going to continue. You folks in Guam, you have seen 3.0s, 2.9s, and even 7.0s north and south of you. I fear that you're going to see a large earthquake coming in Guam as well. Those of you in Indonesia, there is a major earthquake coming your way. It's a matter of time. Over in Tonga and New Zealand. Folks, let me bring up the USGS map really quick here. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But Tonga and New Zealand, guess what? I fear that you guys are also going to get hit with a great big quake. A great big quake. And USGS just got through messing with us here. Just give me a second, I'll bring up the map. Okay, hold on. USGS, unreal. I wish they had their acts together. You're seeing a brand new earthquake over here in the Philippines. Let me enlarge this really quick. This is off the southeast coast of the Philippines. Okay? A 5.3 earthquake, 17 miles east-northeast of Pondagitan, Philippines. This isn't far off the coast. Some of that energy was absorbed by the ocean waters off of Pondagitan, Philippines today. However, folks, they may have felt a 4.8, 4.9, even a 5.0 earthquake. This is close enough to the coast that they have felt a large earthquake today. Yes, there are people that live in this area. Right here. There are people that live right here in this area. I wish I could get it even larger. they felt it. I'm going to try to get more information about that tonight and tomorrow to tell you more about what happened there. A 5.3 earthquake off of southeast Philippines today. The other issue is this, okay? Well, there's two more things. This one right here. See this earthquake in the Mariana Islands region, a 4.2 earthquake. Again, this is a 199 miles deep, a semi-deep earthquake. Okay? That's in the South Mariana Islands. We go north. This is in the Izu Islands. This is a larger earthquake, a 4.8, 6.2 miles deep. Whether it is that deep or not, because again, USGS just throws those figures out. It's in a straight line. Look at this. And there's a companion earthquake to it. It's a large 4.9, 5.0. Also 6.2 miles deep. And then one directly north of that, off the coast of Honshu, Japan. This is a 4.5 earthquake, 37 miles deep. This and the one to the bottom of this are pretty deep earthquakes. This one and that bottom one are probably both down in the asthenosphere. Okay, this is at the limit of the asthenosphere, possibly just the bottom crust of the earth. These are in a straight line. That is never good. That is never good, guys. They're on the fault zone. All four earthquakes are on the fault zone. Not good at all. Okay? Then the earthquakes down here. Tonga. A 5.9, 6.0 earthquake in Tonga. Not good. This is not ever good. It did not hit at the islands, fortunately. It was out in the ocean. But a 6.0 earthquake that's 36 miles deep, it's a fairly shallow quake. But it's a big one. A very strong earthquake out in the ocean. I hope, as I've been told, the ocean waters absorbed this earthquake. Fortunately, if it happened anywhere near the islands, there would have been major damage from that earthquake. Further south, okay, down here. This is south of Fiji. It's also on that other Fijian Trench. The Fijian Trench. A 4.3 earthquake. This is 342 miles deep. A very deep earthquake. This could result in a 5.2, 5.3 earthquake happening as a result of this earthquake by itself. And that seismic energy could go north or south down into New Zealand. That propagated earthquake could go south into New Zealand. Not good. This other earthquake just south of there, this is a 4.6. This is also 328 miles deep. These two earthquakes could both result in a 5.2, 5.3 large earthquake. It could go north here into Vanuatu. It could go east over here into the, west into the Loyalty Islands, south in here to New Zealand. Or it could travel all the way over here to South America. Look at this. No earthquakes except one over in Venezuela. That's a bunch of bull. This is a 4.8 earthquake in northeastern Venezuela. 7.4 miles deep. Okay? Very shallow quake. This happened. There are earthquakes there, and they're not telling us about it. What a bunch of garbage. Over here in Alaska. Over here in Alaska. Just off the coast of Sandpoint, Alaska here. Another 3.4 earthquake. An aftershock of that 6 that hit just a few weeks ago. Over here, okay? Old Ililama volcano here. A 2.0 earthquake. A 2.5 earthquake. Old Ililama volcano. Interesting, huh? Just south of Mount Redoubt, a 1.6 tremor. North of Mount Redoubt, a volcano, a 1.6. Denali, 1.2. How about that? How about this, a 1.6? Tremors up at Mount McKinley. Tremors at Mount McKinley. Valdese, Alaska, a 2.0. 1.1. Glacier View, Alaska. Southeast Alaska, guess what? They don't have much of anything here. This is McCarthy, a 1.7 tremor, but down here where Edgecombe and Wardell volcano are, they're not saying a word. I swear, guys, we're going to get hit. We're going to get hit royally. We talked about Cascadia today, right there. And that's not all the quakes either. We could very much have a stronger earthquake right here. Get prepared, guys. It's coming. It's coming. Does anybody have any questions before we leave tonight? Any other earthquakes? Yes, we probably have earthquakes. I don't think thousands and thousands of miles deep. Now you're talking about down at the core of the earth. There's a lot of things happening down there, but not earthquakes. The core of the earth is spinning. I don't remember how fast it's spinning, but the core of the earth is spinning hugely. Okay? Michael McKinney says those adobe buildings in Mexico are not up that sturdy. Guess what? You're right. And that's when we have those huge earthquakes and people get killed and their property completely torn apart. Lives torn apart. Not fun. Not fun. Space Force Alice is like Atlantis, and believe me, chains of islands are rising up too. And by the way, guys, guess what? I wish I'd gotten a picture of it. We have another volcano off of Japan. An underwater volcano that is erupting right now. And it's erupting with such force that it's making a huge fountain of water and steam coming up from the water. Huge. I'll try to find a picture of that and post it tomorrow here. But things are happening, guys. They're happening in a big way. Now, I want to show you something else. A friend of mine posted a picture on my Facebook page, and I really like it. Well, it's probably just on her page, but I was able to pick up a picture of it today on my page. I think I've got a picture of it here. At least I hope I do. It was pretty cool. Well, maybe I didn't. Just a second. Let me see if I can locate it here, because I think it has pertinence to what we've been talking about in our lives, getting our lives straight. Good. I think we can do this. At least I hope we can. All right. Just a second here. I hope I was able to transfer it. Not yet. I can still get it. Now I know I've got it. Yes, I do. Folks, I want to show you this. I hope you all can see this. Do your little bit of good where you are. It's those little bits of good that put together that overwhelm the world. Sweetest dreams, good night, much love, but it's this one here at the bottom. Your greatness is not what you have, it's what you give. Your greatness is not what you have, but what you give. From the scriptures. From the scriptures. A virtuous woman is a crown to her husband. But she that maketh ashamed is as rottenness in his bones. The thoughts of the righteous are right, but the counsels of the wicked are deceit. The words of the wicked are to lie in wait for blood, but the mouth of the upright shall deliver them. The wicked ate overgrown and are not, but the house of the righteous shall stand. The house of the righteous will stand. That's from Proverbs chapter 12, verses 4 through 8. Think about that. Guys, I care about you. I love you. Share your greatness. Share your loveliness with other people. Because it's not what you have, it's what you give. Folks, I ask the Lord to bless you in every way possible. The Lord wants to bless us each and every day. It's only our duty as His servants to help bless other people's lives. May we do that and reap enormous blessings for doing it. Don't do it to reap blessings. Do it because of the graciousness of your own heart. That's why we share our lives and our love with other people. God bless you. Thank you all for being here. I appreciate that super chat we had tonight, that $10 super chat. God bless you for helping us. We do appreciate it. God be with you always. Folks, have a great night and a better tomorrow. If I have anything else that goes on, as soon as we get the information, we will come back here to pass it on to you. Other than that, we will be back here same time, same bat station tomorrow night, hopefully closer to 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. I hope you have a great night and a better tomorrow. Give your kids, your wives, and your spouse a big hug. They deserve it. Tell everyone that you love and care about that you do love and care about them. Tomorrow is not given. It's time to share blessings today. Have a great night, guys. I do care and I do love you. We will see you on the other side. Good night, everybody.